Hello, welcome to Framework and the return of the Bioware Omnibus, where we are going to talk about a non-Bioware game because we didn't think that this was confusing enough. We is, of course, me, Al Schwartz, and with me, as always, John Bernard.
Hey, hello. Welcome back to the podcast, everyone. It's Bioware Day.
Yes,
sort of.
These are my favorite days. I love these games so much. I feel like it's less well-trod ground than when we're doing Christopher Nolan movies, and
of course.
But the problem is they come so rarely because these are such giant beasts to wade through. To the point we've only done a handful of them over the course of 2 years.
None more so than Knights of the Old Republic 2, the Sith Lords, subject of today's episode. This is as big as it gets. Yeah.
This is not a Bioware game, but it's done by Obsidian Entertainment, a different studio. However, it is a sequel to a Bioware game, and it is very much, it's the engine of Knights of the Old Republic 1 with some very minor gameplay tweaks. Honestly, this is a thing that 5 to 7 years later, this would not have been a sequel. This would have been an expansion pack, along the lines of Grand Theft Auto's got the Lost and Damned or the Ballad of Gay Tony type thing, or Dragon Age Awakening, for example, even in the Bioware context, is like a completely new sequel story, not quite as big as the main game, but definitely not its own beast entirely.
Yeah, but this is enormous, though. This game is humongous and gigantic, right? I mean, it's as long as the first game, at least, right?
It's definitely got more plot to it. So it takes, it is long, yes. And that, right. I mean, it's got, I guess, roughly the same amount of worlds in it, if that's the metric you're going to use, and a similar number of characters, although I'd argue that the characters here are all more well-developed than the first ones, for sure.
Yes, for sure. Well, that's the thing. It's a little weird that one could make the argument that the best Bioware game is this one that Bioware did not make. Not to, put all my cards on the table at this point. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying this is the best Bioware game, but I think it's in the conversation, because this is a pretty remarkable piece of work, this thing.
You know what's weird is that I don't think it's in the conversation for the best of these Bioware games because it has flaws as a game. However, I will make the other
level, yes.
bigger contention that this is I think this is the best Star Wars story outside of the original trilogy that's ever been done.
Well, that's the thing. Yeah, this is kind of the perfect Star Wars thing. This is kind of the high bar that I guess has made me a believer in this franchise, even as they've done continuously many things that I'm not interested in or don't enjoy particularly. Between this game and the original game, Knights of the Old Republic 1 and 2, I mean, they expose the potential of this franchise better than anything else. They show you how elastic it is, how incredibly in-depth and interesting the mythology can be if you really want to get into it, if you really want to explore the implications of the Force, for example, or see how many different types of cultures and civilizations can fit under the umbrella that has been established by the first film, by 1977 Star Wars, George Lucas. This is as good a demonstration as I've ever seen.
And genres.
Mm-hmm.
Genres of horror, of storytelling, when we get to the plot of this game, the opening of this game is dabbling in survival horror, which we'll get into that in a moment. But yeah, you're right that a big part of this is just that these games are that proof of concept where no matter how many times Disney drops the ball and does something I don't like with this license, it can't undo what this has proven, which is that you could always just go back and do it right. You could always you can shake the Etch-a-Sketch on Star Wars 2 is what this has shown. Just, okay, well, drop back 1,000 years, go forward 1,000 years, whatever. You can, it's so elastic. You can keep whatever elements you want and discard whichever ones you don't want. And it's fine. You have the same laser swords, the same type of spaceship 5,000 years earlier, and not have to deal with any of the characters or plot elements if you don't want to.
To the point where I would say, if you're a Star Wars fan and you've not experienced these games, I think you're missing out on so much. You're missing out on the best of that is possible with this franchise. And And for a while, it was hard to get your hands on these games. Hard to play these. I mean, you could kind of go. I think it was probably on Steam for a while now, but before Steam was really a thing, these games probably were out of circulation.
And they began as Xbox exclusives. So if you were a PlayStation household, you were kind of shit out of luck when it came to this. It's different now, of course. And we need to talk a little bit about this game's production, because one of the things about this is that it was shipped under a wildly draconian release schedule that LucasArts put on Obsidian, which led to them having to cut out a bunch of content at the last minute. And crucially, having a lot of the end of the game just be incomplete. And you can definitely feel that in the original release. It has developed a cult following enough over the last 15 years that for about 10 years, a group of, just fans worked on the scavenged to the files of things that were partially complete, and did a whole, what they call the restoration project, the whole mod that added in a whole bunch of story elements and entire levels, a new planet in one case. And now you can get that on Steam, and it is crucially, it is the only way to play the game, because otherwise it's the only way to get the complete ending.
And I don't know. I mean, I've played this once back in the day and once last year, and I'm a little fuzzy on where the new content came in, where it didn't. Now, in some cases, it's very clear, but in other cases, I'm kind of just like, what was that there before? And then I go and look and find out it was not, and that I'd kind of filled some of that in on my own, actually. The depth of what they're doing in this is so much that I feel like, I don't know. I was very impressed with this when I played it 20 years ago as well, and
me too.
I imagine that the update, the completed version of it, really has just sort of brought it up to what you would expect to play, for an excellent game now. It's pretty impressive, and it flows very well. And I mean, I don't know what it would have been like to play the original version in 2022, but with the special edition or whatever we're calling it out, it's pretty seamless. This is still a pretty great game to play. This has none of the Baldur's Gate old school kind of difficulty to it. If you play the original Knights, you've got this one too. And I don't know, I've played a lot of those games, so maybe it's easier, but I don't know. I would recommend this to anybody really who's a Star Wars fan at this point.
Yeah, that's true. It's not a super difficult game, or at least the difficulty scaling really levels out about halfway through, and then you can walk through just about anything if you've
have a problem with a lot of games, a lot of RPGs. Yeah. But
not always a bad thing.
It's not a gameplay game anyway. You know?
Exactly. It is very much a story and character game, and an atmosphere game. I'm surprised how well that comes through even on the older generation graphics and everything. So I did replay this on Xbox recently, just because I don't have a gaming rig for I had previously when 4 or 5 years ago when the restoration mod came out, I did download it and play it on a computer. So I've done all that. But this time, just as a refresher, I tried, maybe we'll get into this as we go through the plot. I tried to do an evil run through of this game, and the recurring thing here, I just have a really hard time role playing one of these giant games as evil all the way through. It's fun for like an hour, and then
it's a long time to be evil. Yeah.
It's a long time to stay in character. So anyway, the Obsidian got the gig to make this thing. They were given something like 18 months, which is already a pretty short amount of time. And then partway through production, we're told that actually you have more like 10 months or something. And so it was released, like I said, early and with a lot of things missing. For all of that, it's remarkable, the writing of this game that comes through as the biggest asset, and just how well developed all of such a wide swath of characters are, and themes, I guess. There's genuine thematic and philosophical ideas being batted around here in a way that you don't get from The Mandalorian or Rogue One. I guess maybe you're starting to get that from Andor.
Well, that's the thing about Andor. I mean, Andor is like a remarkable thing to have happened, honestly, in the Disney Plus era, because it kind of reminded me that Star Wars can be like this, right? That it can, that's the closest anything has come to touching the complexity and intelligence of Knights of the Old Republic too. Honestly, I mean, Rogue One is headed in that direction, but
right.
But Andor is the closest.
A mess, Swiss cheese mess of a script is the problem there. Like it got put under some similar things of like, well, we're just going to release it whether it's ready or not.
Right.
But it got a lot of the other stuff right. The stuff. I mean, weirdly, it kind of righted the ship by doing a really big slam bang ending that works like gangbusters in Rogue One's case,
Right,
whereas that's the part that's ended up missing from this game. But otherwise, it's like their strengths and weaknesses are so reversed in terms of how the time crunch, what it took out of them.
That's interesting. Yeah. Wow. Huh. That's cool. This game, another thing it has in common with Rogue One and Andor, it's kind of the only one of the only Star Wars properties that actually feels like it takes place during a war. Like it is about war. It is about the cost of galactic war and how destabilizing that would be for trillions of people, for planets, societies, everything just completely churned by the course of this, and lives upheaved, and almost everyone you meet is a product of this war in one way or the other.
Absolutely. And what's funny about that is that it is also one of the only Star Wars stories that does that while not taking place during any like declared war. There is no big galactic war going on that scale during this game. It's about the aftermath and the like galactic depression that follows the first game's, giant world war scenario, and how that just sort of, the Republic quote unquote won, but is still absolutely devastated by fighting a long bloody civil war.
I mean, it feels like in this game that like it's right after like World War One, except it's the whole galaxy. Europe is just in chaos, and and Germany in particular is. I mean, it feels like something bad is about to happen, I guess.
Yes,
is how it feels in this game, and it is, yeah.
Okay, so there's a good way to get into this because I wanted to talk to you a little bit about just the opening shots of both of the Knights of the Old Republic games, and how that is such a Star Wars sort of staple of iconography. Like, the opening of A New Hope is, if not the most famous shot in all of cinema, it's definitely up there. And, the whole thing about that is you get Princess Leia's ship flying out there into the frame, and then you get the Star Destroyer following it. That's just, so much, dozens of times bigger than it, and how that visually conveys to you everything you know about this world and this conflict, about like how overmatched the rebels are and the big technological horror that is the Empire. So when you look at the opening of Knights of the Old Republic 1, obviously any Star Wars product is going to ape that opening crawl, the text crawl through the starfield. And then you get a similar shot of the Republic cruiser entering the frame, sort of like the Star Destroyer, because the Republic is, the big power in the galaxy at this stage of Star Wars history. But as it comes into frame, you start to see that it's actually like being shot up, and it's smoking and like listing to the side, and it's beat up and damaged because the Sith are kicking its ass. And so that tells you sort of the state of the war between the Republic and the Sith there in the opening shot of that game. Jumping forward to Knights of the Republic 2, we come out of the crawl and we see the empty space, and then you see the Ebon Hawk, our version of the Millennium Falcon that we flew around in the first game, right? But it is shot all to hell and sort of floating sidelong through space with its back opened up and sparks and fire flying all over it. But nothing shooting at it. There's no visible enemies. It's just a devastated wreck of what our base of operations from the last game. And so that sets the stage for what is going on in Knights of the Republic 2, which is that the Republic is beat up and damaged, but there is no obvious villain beating up on it.
Yeah, that's cool.
Good stuff.
That's good storytelling. Yeah. This is like you said, the writing in this thing. I mean, just down into a micro level like that is so smart. It's so much storytelling. That's the thing. It crams so much story into this, and not just like the narrative of the game, which frankly is kind of just fetch questy, I guess. Take it if you pull back a little, but every single character,
every Bioware game, every role playing game is going to have that element to it when you pull back.
Of course, yeah. it would be a hard one to describe, though. Like, the actual plot of this game is kind of a little tenuous as a narrative spine. None of that matters because each individual narrative is so strong.
It's less individual plot turns than it is just relationships with individual characters and conversations with them. You know, it feels like the bulk of this game takes place just on the ship talking to your companions. At least in my memory, that's where a lot of the memorable stuff comes in.
It's incredible stuff too. I mean, I mean, I think I used this term at one point, talking about Bioware games. It's kind of like a podcast, honestly, which sounds bad as gameplay, but it is kind of like, I just want to go, you know, I want to go talk to Atten or Beodur and get their perspective on this thing, you know, this specific thing. And they'll have a really, really considered perspective that comes from their backstory pretty explicitly. And that's true of, I don't know, how many characters in this game? 10, something like that.
8 or 9.
And that's just the ones that you can play with, you know, because the NPCs have it too. It's nuts. It's nuts.
Well, there are, I believe, 9 companions get in each game, but 2 of them are variable depending on whether you play as either a man or a woman and whether you play light side or dark side. But we can get to, you know what? Let's try and go through the plot linearly.
Okay.
So
sure, best we can.
And we'll encounter these characters as we go. So the opening, like I said, Evan Hawks shot up and drifting through space. You start out playing a little tutorial level as T3M4, who is our R2D2 analog droid that was our buddy in the first game, and he's just rolling around the ruined ship trying to get it fixed, which he does. You can skip the whole tutorial if you've done it before, but he gets it fixed to the point where it flies into this Paragus mining station, which is built into the side of an asteroid in the middle of an asteroid belt, and we sort of fade to black and fade in to the game proper on our new main character, who's sort of stuck in there in a Bacta tank like Luke Skywalker was in on Hoth in their med bay, but comes to there, sort of breaks out and finds the whole facility has been wiped out. There's just bodies everywhere, and they're alone in this facility. And the player character is the Jedi Exile, where you learn over the course of time that it is it's 5 years after the first game, and you play a Jedi who was a general for Darth Revan and Darth Malak in their army when they fought in the Mandalorian Wars before they then attacked the Republic and started the Jedi Civil War. This is a lot of wars in the stars to keep track of here.
Right, there's like 3 massive galactic wars have happened in the last 50 years, I think, in this timeline, and so that's why everyone's so messed up, you know.
So you had first the Mandalorian Wars, where they attacked the Republic, and that was, I mean, in the first game, it felt like that was World War II or World War I, but now, like you said, it feels a little different. So anyway, the Jedi had a schism within them about whether they should go fight this war for the Republic or whether they should remain devoted to pacifism and tasty mush they call root marm. And 2 of the Jedi, Revan and Malak, led the more militant wing of the Jedi to go fight that war, which they eventually won. But then they turned around and became Sith and attacked the Republic themselves, and that started a whole war that was the story of the first game. So your character in 2 was their top general in that first war, who then, when they turned bad, you came back to face the Jedi Council, and they exiled you and stripped you of your force powers and sent you back into the edge of the galaxy. Now, finally, I guess 10 years after that, roughly 8 years after that, you are coming back to Republic space. Man, and we're like 10 minutes into the plot of this game. There's so much backstory to get through.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's a warm bath of backstory for sure. I mean, if you want to dig into this, you can spend as much time as you want on it. It's so good, and I mean, I think even in just that recap, you can kind of see the philosophical ideas that they're going to be playing with. You know, like just within the literal text of the backstory. you're getting opposing philosophies of how to handle the Force and intervention versus non-intervention. And, it's all the big ideas about the Jedi kind of explored in this game. Like all the stuff that they're sort of fainting towards about sort of an impotent ruling council in the prequels. It's really about that, it's great.
And this came out in the midst of the prequels. So it really did. It felt like, okay, yeah, this is the stuff that prequel defenders are telling you is all buried in the prequels somewhere if you really squint. But
yeah, that's like the revisionist version of what the prequels are doing. It's actual text in this, and text you get immediately.
Yeah. But like I said, the backstory is actually delivered in a pretty steady flow that it's not overwhelming. You can sort of skip past it if you don't feel like hearing about it right now at any given point. So it's not like...
but you're missing the point of the game if you don't listen to the podcast about the backstory.
Yeah. Anyway, so you start going through this emptied mining facility, and the first person you come across is an old woman who appears to be dead, but then pops up and starts giving you unsolicited advice. This is Kreia. I mean, maybe the best character in Star Wars ever.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, is there a better written character in all of Star Wars? Maybe not.
It's like Han Solo is obviously a classic character, but he doesn't really have the
written, though.
Depths of philosophical insights that Kreia has. So I guess the thing for plot wise in this game is that she is also a former Jedi, and you guys have some sort of, contrivance of a Force bond that means like if one of you gets hurt, the other one can get hurt. Yeah, which is really just a way to make sure that you can't send her packing, that you have to keep her with you throughout the rest of the game. But she is, says basically, yeah, you used to be a Jedi. I know a little bit about you, and I can help you sort of regain your Force powers if you will, listen to my teachings. And you can be more hostile to her, more open to her, whatever, because that's how role-playing games work in this era. But as you continue through the facility, you uncover more like intrigue about what happened to all the miners there, how they succumbed to a campaign of sabotage. And you also come across one other living survivor, which is Atten Rand, who you find in a laser cell, a force field prison. And he is sort of the Han Solo type, right? He's the rogue.
Mm-hmm. Or he's a very familiar Bioware type as well, which is sort of the goofy best friend male, kind of a sidekick. Kind of a dweeb. I mean, he's in the tradition of Karth Onassi, or Alistair, or Caden Alenko. As often as not, that's the same voice actor. Not in this case, but
good old Raphael Sabarge.
Yes, exactly.
He is not. No, Atten is voiced by Nicky Cat, though.
It's pretty cool. Yeah,
the great Nicky Cat, a great character actor that we love.
And as with many characters, this guy ends up having swerves and depths that are, not necessarily what you would expect from his archetype, his Bioware archetype, in fact. Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird. Actually, I was just thinking that the Caden Alenko or Karth Onassi archetype, that dweeb character, is actually a disciple that doesn't pop up until halfway through the game, personality-wise.
Sort of. It's a little different. Mine was a woman. It's on its surface, Atten is filling that role.
I would guess so. He's less of a dweeb, though. He's more of the scoundrel type, and he is sort of like Han Solo, except as we'll get into later in the game, he is sort of Han Solo if he had genuine like dark edges to him. I guess
he's got some dark edges. Oh man, yeah.
Han shoots Greedo, but if Han had shot, I don't know, who's somebody sort of neutral there.
Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru.
Maybe not quite
neutral.
Them, but... But if that had been a Republic soldier, one of the guys with the big ping pong ball helmet guys on there that Han had shot, they'd be like, you might be like, oh wow, he's you really don't know which way this guy's going to break. And yeah, although again, he doesn't really front load that. He sort of reveals his dark backstory and his ugly side only after you've gotten a little bit attached to him as, oh yeah, he is the funny sidekick guy.
Yeah. Another one of the great subversions of this game. On a game full of great subversions, that's one of the best ones. Atten might be. Well, I don't know. I think we should rank the dweeb sidekick. Eventually.
Well, again, I don't think. I think the disciple is the dweeb. is my contention here. Okay. So anyway, you got 3 people, which is a full party as far as this game is concerned, and you're trying to escape from this thing. Meanwhile, a Republic warship pulls up outside, and this warship, we see it also in a pretty cool cutscene, also empty and full of dead bodies, except for one body we find, which is the big first big Sith baddie we're going to face, which is Darth Sion, who is a big hulking gray-skinned guy with like scars all over his body and face. And
for an old game, that's a pretty cool design.
Yeah.
A lot of the Sith pretty cool looking in this.
Yeah, there's going to be multiple Sith. We're going to find out. It is called the Sith Lords, plural, is the subtitle of this game. And this is our first guy. And so, also, you are ambushed by an HK-50 unit, which is, we remember HK-47, who was our evil robot assassin buddy from the first game. And there is a sort of new model of him running around, which has a different color palette, but is the same voice actor, has the same sort of vocal tics of announcing their tone before, or part of speech before they go in, just saying refutation. Oh no, I wouldn't say that, master, blah, blah, blah. So he was the one who killed all the miners in the station, and he's trying to take you in. Reveals basically there's a bounty on Jedi that he and his line of droids are trying to collect on. So you kill him, you end up sneaking onto the Republic warship so you can go through it and get into a different part of the mining facility and recover the Ebon Hawk and escape. In the process, you run into Darth Sion. You run away while Kreia has a little confrontation with him, during which there's a past between them that is hinted at, and Darth Sion cuts off her hand. So we get the requisite, lightsaber dismemberment early on in this game.
And that's also establishes the Force dyad as well, that they're like, the exile also feels the pain of the hand getting cut off. It's, their link is established fully with that. I'd say, yep, physical pain too. One cannot live while the other dies, or whatever.
So now you're escaping from the station on the Ebon Hawk. The warship is chasing you and firing at. They set up a choice of whether you want to do this purposefully or not, but it doesn't make a difference in the end. Eventually, the asteroids that are all full of this fuel they were mining start exploding, and the whole thing explodes and destroys the whole station and everything as you escape. So now we're finally out of the opening of this game. Like I said, this is sort of like a survival horror vibes to it. I wouldn't say it succeeds in terms of gameplay on that. This engine is not set up for that type of gameplay whatsoever. But I kind of like that they went for atmosphere here. And ultimately it drags on a little too long. You have to go through a few too many hoops to get this computer working and that computer working and hear this bit of backstory.
But all this stuff, I mean, even in this opening, attached to this sort of clunky fight mechanic, you can really see the strength of the writing and what you can achieve with only writing in a video game. How much you can kind of get drawn in. And this is kind of before it starts really revealing how subversive it is and how smart it is. This is still kind of just like doing business as usual, or at least getting you into the mode of thinking like, okay, I'm familiar with these archetypes. You've kind of got a Han Solo and an Obi-Wan Kenobi figure here. And they're working on that level.
Both more evil versions of that. That's it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the other thing. This is just considerably darker. Yeah. this is considerably darker than others, the original Star Wars, than the original Knights of the Old Republic. Even like this, the tone that's set right from the start here is there's more dread, more mystery, more portent around it. I mean, a lot of the fun of the first game was that there was a mystery there, sort of kind of what's the full story of what happened with Darth Revan and where did the Sith get their, shiny new army that nobody had ever seen these ships before or whatever. And teasing all that out with conversations with your companions or other people and uncovering a little bit by bit. That's a lot of where the fun of playing through that story gets. In this one, it's like everything is shrouded in that dark portent and ambiguity.
And I do think the original Knights is going for sort of an original series kind of a wonder and a sense of adventure. And, I mean, there's some more adult themes in it than you would expect from Star Wars, but mostly it is, it's kind of playing in the same sandbox that we're familiar with. More mature, yes, but the tone is, and then we're going to fight a dragon in the desert, stuff like that. This one is much more like in your face, right? No, there's a lot of torture in war. Just stuff like that. Just keeps getting dropped like immediately. A lot of people, like every NPC on that thing dying, all that stuff happening, of course. I think that the original game kind of set the groundwork for this world, but yeah, it ratchets up here early and then continually throughout.
Right. So now we head to Citadel Station, which is a big space station over the planet of Telos, which we were introduced to in the first game as the home world of good old Cartho Nassi. And it was bombed into a cinder by the bad guys of the first game. So now everybody lives on the space station up above it while they are so very, very slowly trying to, reseed the planet's surface to be able to support life. You set down there, you're sort of immediately arrested for destroying the space station that you just escaped from, and you end up in jail there. There's an assassin that sneaks in to try and take you out in a very awkwardly scripted encounter. Feels like maybe that's a place where a corner was cut because some of the things that guy says make absolutely no sense. But anyway, we don't have time to get on this level of granular detail. The gist is you get sort of drug into the conflict here between the do-gooder tree hugger types, which are the Athorians, the big sort of like, right. I guess, the hammerhead, sea cow type creatures.
The Star Wars aliens, they're very obvious when you see them.
Yeah. And they're the ones sort of in charge of doing the hippy dippy stuff to get the planet suitable for life again. And then the bad guys are the Zerka Corporation, who are the company from Aliens. And they're sort of trying to take over that whole project and turn it into a money-making scheme. And depending on whether your light side or dark side, you can help one or the other. Kind of a nifty little thing there, where if you're trying to infiltrate the company, you sort of like reprogram some of their droids and have them do some you sneak in as a protocol droid that can't fight, but you can sort of sow seeds of dissent and rebellion amongst the other droids and kind of sabotage them from the inside.
That's cool shit. Do stuff like that through it. There's so many neat little things like that you can do in this game. And love the droid, the T3. T3, by the way, it really emerges as a character in this game somehow. This little astromech.
I mean, he's got some more to do. I still don't know exactly what his character is because it's R2-D2. I mean, you can't hear. It doesn't tell you.
He's a sneaky little asshole. He's a sneaky little shit. Like at least that's how I played him. He's a nice guy. That's fun. I mean, you could kind of do the either way. Yeah. Can you with T3 though? Does he really have the wealth of choice offered by somebody?
Not really. Because he's the nice guy. I think he's the nice guy droid, and then HK-47 is the mean guy droid. So you don't really have the wealth of choice when you're playing HK either.
He manipulates people, other droids and such.
Yeah, kind of. But again, that's
I wish you could dark side T3. That'd be fun. Oh well.
Yeah, you can dark side most of these characters because they will be influenced by how you act and how you interact with them.
Cool mechanic. We got to talk about that later. Yeah,
yeah, we do. But for now, you eventually sneak down to the planet's surface, where you are immediately shot down and helped. You are found at the crash site and helped by an old war buddy of yours, who is Bioware. Who is a Zabrak alien, which is the type of alien that Darth Maul was, with the sort of horns on his head. And he also only has one arm. Just an incredible vocal performance.
Wonderful vocal
on that.
That's true of a lot of these guys, but Bioware is unexpected. Yeah.
I mean, I feel like is it worth like really trying to describe how these things sound or look when you could just Google it and you can hear YouTube of this guy's vocal performance, but it is just it's very whispery,
low-key, calm,
but with undercurrents of like when he gets angry, like he still stays calm and whatever, but you hear it coming through, and it's just it's not one of those archetypes. There's not a character or performance like that in every BioWare game the way there is with that dweeb.
Yeah.
Or even that, Kreia is a sort of, manipulative, secretive old crone. Like that's more of an archetype than this. This is just Bioware is also a character that had a lot of content cut in the end, and his story doesn't pay off entirely at the end, but he was one of my favorites. I used him a lot.
He gets kind of left out at the end, unfortunately. He's got the arm too. He's got this electronic ghost arm. What a cool design. And it's also cool because really the only kind of alien we've seen of this type is Darth Maul, and to see a version of that alien that is basically 180 degrees away from Darth Maul, in temperament, in alignment, in plot function, it's really cool. And he's as distinct. Well, more distinct, really. You got more time with him. He has a character rather than just a design.
Right. And he is, you said, not just alignment, but he's also the brainy character, because he's your tech guy. And it turns out that he's the guy who designed and built the sort of super weapon that you used to destroy the Mandalorian war machine, and end the whole Mandalorian wars. In doing so, he sort of like destroyed the whole Mandalorian army and a huge chunk of the Jedi army as well, and destroyed this whole planet of Malachor 5, which is something that people will talk about a lot in this game. Yeah, it's this giant atrocity that ended that war, and the planet is ruined. Again, that's a cool location that we will be visiting later. He's the nice guy, like you said, but also he's got this dark backstory. He lost his arm in the war, and he did this thing that haunts him, and he's got a lot of anger built around that, even though he is calm and cerebral, mostly. So anyway, Bioware helps you find another shuttle to replace your crashed one from a abandoned military base, which you used to take to another secret base in the polar regions, where they you found some sort of energy blip or something to go investigate. And what you find there, after you get shot down again and fight some more HK-50s, is that there is a secret base here at like the South Pole of the planet that is run by Atris, who is an old, I guess I was going to say Jedi buddy of yours, but really Jedi frenemy / pretty much just enemy at this point. She was in charge of exiling your character in the first place, and she is just a very self-righteous, sort of priggish, everything you do is wrong, why didn't you just listen to me type. She is attended by a group of like identical twin albino kung fu masters, essentially. The handmaidens. And this is where you get one of the first like sort of split, where if you are a male character, one of the handmaidens will come with you as a companion character. If you're a female character, they will not. But they're sort of sent as openly as a spy for Atris to report on your doings. And they are they don't use any weapons. They're barehanded specialists, which is a mechanic this game seems to have put a lot of effort into developing, but didn't actually make viable.
No, no one did that really.
Well, you're not going to do it for your main
You
character.
have lightsabers. Yeah, the point of the game is everyone can do lightsabers.
Exactly, but it's kind of cool they did one character to sort of force you into doing different styles.
I suppose
I don't mind that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, honestly, well, do we want to talk about Atris or the Handmaiden first?
Atris. I think Atris rules. Atris is one of my favorites. God, what a character.
Well, she rules in that you hate her.
Oh, yes.
She sucks.
Very much. Very much. She is a villain. A Jedi who is a villain. Basically.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. I mean, and not an overt villain, I guess by the end, kind of, but like, there's a lot of steps on the path. She just sucks, basically. Everything that we were talking about with the sort of aloof impotence of the Jedi Council in the prequels manifests within Atris. Every sort of elitist, shitty attitude that you could ascribe to the Jedi is at the fore of Atris, and that's great. She's a wonderful character in this, and
it's not just impotence; it's impotence mixed with sanctimony, where she's looking. She's never lifted her finger to save the galaxy in any of these two giant conflicts that have happened, but also judges you and hectors you about anything that you did to, save the galaxy from being ground under the boot of fascist dictatorship.
Yeah, just pure contempt for action. Basically, it's all sort of religious theory, or principle, or well, these rules say that I don't have to do that. In fact, I'd be wrong to help you in this case. Like a lot of that. It's a Jedi character that should have been written into one of the main movies a long time ago.
Indeed,
this character belongs within Star Wars so much, and this is the best version of it. So.
Yeah, and it's that just incredibly frustrating thing, the attitude of she's pointing around at like we're talking about this game world, everything's so fucked up from it, and she put out, well, look, you went and did your thing, and look how horribly everything turned out, and you just want to shake her and be like, yeah, but what if you had actually helped with any of that? Like, you're acting like this couldn't be any worse if we had done nothing. So but for now, she just kind of yells at you. I'm selling it short here, actually. I think this is a really incredible sequence where it's essentially a boss fight that is just an argument. Yeah. You're just using dialogue options and you're defining your character's backstory and personality, but even like the events of your character's backstory through these dialogue options. But this comes, 6-8 hours into this game at this point. Like, you've had time to sort of acclimate yourself.
The dialogue in this game, that's the gameplay that really matters. It seems like this is the first time it's like really right at the front and center. I think this Atris confrontation, but this is where the game lives, in the choices you make in dialogue. Which, I mean, how many games is that true of? I know there's games that, like, maybe Telltale games a little bit, but like,
Telltale games, that's the whole mechanic. But even that, it's not. It's not so much that you choose really specific dialogue. It's that you choose, like, I don't know, this direction or that direction, and
it really defines the characters in a way that is, I mean, I don't know, it's the Bioware thing, in a way that feels personal, that feels unique to you, even if it's a bit of an illusion. It creates this sort of bond, of this empathetic bond you have with your version of the exile and the other characters as well. It's magic. Something like that. It's really, really, I don't know. It's something I have not seen many other games pull off to this extent. And a lot of people have tried.
I think this game was written by a guy named Chris Avallone, who has previously written the game Planescape Torment, which is sort of similar to Baldur's Gate in terms of like the engine it uses and everything. Yeah. But I gather, not having played it, I gather is much more dialogue based, has a lot of these philosophical, headier ideas kicking around, and is much more story based and choice based than combat based than Baldur's Gate.
It strikes me to find a game this old that is as intelligently written and is as ambitious in its philosophy and in what it expects of the gamer and what it offers the gamer. It is, like this is stuff that is not easy to do now by any means, or at any, like that they were doing this on such an old engine in such a compressed amount of time with such a popular IP. This game should not exist in the way it does. It's outrageous.
No. But going back to something I was saying about how we're deep enough into the game now that we're starting and we're just now defining some sort of key elements of our main character's backstory. But I think that's sort of key because we're so deep in the game, we have learned a little bit about these events and what they mean to the story world before we have to really commit to why we did and what exactly we did and why. And that I think is like kind of brilliant. It allows you, otherwise you kind of have to, you do the thing in Mass Effect where you choose a background for your character. And then that is a thing that Keith David says one sentence about in your introduction and then never has any effect on anything ever again. So that's, but the illusion there is a lot flimsier than it is here, where I feel like now when I'm arguing with Atris, I have some actual conviction behind my feelings on these subjects. And I think that's a good design. It also ties back to the Bioware dweeb character, because I think a reason why you get that sort of, wet blanket guy at the start of a lot of these games is that you need to start building up your party and getting you involved in the game mechanics right off the bat. But for these games where the element of choice is so big and you choosing whether to be dark side or light side or, Paragon or Renegade, whatever the dichotomy they choose for that particular world is, you don't want your first companion to be like super duper, like a super duper strong character, if they have to kind of be willing to go along with whichever direction you decide to go, at least at the start. Later on, you can have some characters with stronger personalities or whatever that you can bounce off of. But when you're first getting acclimated to the game, you don't want the first NPC to sort of railroad you into anything, or to the player to feel like, oh, I alienated this guy right off the bat. So the way a lot of games do that is with this sort of, beta male dweeb guy that will go along with whatever you want. What this game does, I think, is kind of, it introduces the first two characters are just very morally ambivalent. And Kreia is sort of looking at you like a specimen in a jar and is curious which way you'll go and will sort of chide you whether you go dark side or light side.
So cool.
But and she is like just genuinely neutral in a way that's actually philosophically interesting, as opposed to like the neutrals from Futurama.
Or Atris even. Yeah.
And then Atten, it turns out, is very susceptible to, will kind of follow you whichever way you go. And you end up getting his backstory sheds a lot of light on that, that he's got history with the Jedi that has really just fucked him up. And so he's kind of looking to you to either prove all his negative feelings about the Jedi and confirm some of his poor life choices in the past, or prove them wrong and give him a little bit of hope that, oh, maybe they could actually live up to the promise that I gave up hope on. So anyway, you get more interesting versions than just Caden Alenko is not going to push back on you much no matter what you do.
Yeah. I mean, it's those are more advanced games, the engines they're running on, the Mass Effects, everything they do after this, really. But it does feel like I don't know, like they I think it's just generally hard to write characters that are this dimensional within the context of a video game that allows for so much choice. But it pulls it off here, and that's what's so impressive about this game. I've never done the evil run of this game. It seems like a really hard one to do. I'm curious how that works. I'm actually really curious as to how all these characters line up with the evil version. It's I found it really rewarding in the first one. In this one, I just, it seems like you were saying, really daunting to be evil the whole time.
I did not find it that easy, but you know what? Let's talk about the evil playthrough once we get like through the actual plot of the game and how sort of the difference there. Because all right, so now we are probably 8 hours into this game, if not 10, and we're finally get our ship and can sort of fly around the galaxy as we wish. And that, I mean, so we've been talking for almost an hour here. It's taken us this long, but that it takes you that long to sort of get your ship. You still don't have a lightsaber in this game. You have to construct your lightsaber piece by piece, and you probably have 2 of the 4 pieces at this point, or maybe 2 of the 3. I don't know. But now is when the game finally opens up, and you can get to do your choice of where to go next. Your conceit now is that you are going to go search for these 4 surviving Jedi Masters that all were on the jury that exiled you, and you could get
pieces of the star map, basically. Yeah,
right. You get to choose which planet to go to first. Your choices are Korriban, which was the Sith home or headquarter world that we went to in the last game; Dantooine, which was the sort of Jedi headquarter world that we went to in the first game to learn to be a Jedi. Both of which have been sort of devastated by the last war and are in shambles, more or less. And then our new worlds of Onderon and Nar Shaddaa. And so it's a little bit imbalanced here, that Onderon and Nar Shaddaa are way, way more developed and much better in their storylines than Korriban or Dantooine. So I think, as I think I mentioned last time, my stance is usually I prioritize going around and collecting all of the companion characters as my first order of business. So
I went for lightsaber pieces. That was my first goal.
No. But don't you find them no matter what planet you go to? And
I don't know. I found an optimal path to get one fastest, and it was Nar Shaddaa first.
Okay. See, I go to Onderon first because Onderon gets split up into 2 pieces where you have like you do half of it and then you have to leave and go to another planet and then you come back and do the second half. So I do like Onderon part 1, then Nar Shaddaa, then Onderon part 2. Sure. So in that let's go that route, I guess. And sure. So you go to Onderon, which is a planet where there is a queen there who's sort of like the good guy, and she is sort of in a brewing civil war with her top generals plotting to overthrow her, and because he wants Onderon to secede from the Republic, and if that happens, it'll be a whole big problem where the Republic will probably not survive. Now, as you show up there, you get shot down again, as becomes a recurring theme. And this time you sort of set down on the moon of Onderon, called Duxon, where there was the first like big, horribly bloody battle of the Mandalorian Wars that the Jedi Exile took part in. You get the sense that it was sort of the Stalingrad of the Mandalorian Wars. So you creep around there, you've come across a camp of Mandalorians there. Our old buddies, the Mandalorians, led by Mandalore himself, which is the name of the leader of the Mandalorians, guy in a big head-to-toe black armor, looks sort of like a TIE fighter pilot. But we recognize his voice because we've heard it before. He was our Mandalorian buddy from the first game, good old Canderous Ordo. We see him now. This is really cool, I think. Not that like they really hide the ball on who it is or anything, but just seeing this playable character from the first game show up in this sort of new form. He's gone through character progression since then, and it makes sense kind of no matter which way you played the first game.
And it kind of doesn't matter. Like they don't. I love that they don't like underline. They don't have a moment where he says, "I'm actually Canderous Ordo, and I served under Revan." That doesn't happen. You kind of just figure it out when you figure it out. It's like, wait, that is the guy, isn't it? Oh shit, it is him. And it gets filled in as you go on, but it lets you figure that out, and I think that's really cool.
Yeah, you can ask him about Revan, and he'll tell you about things if you have enough influence with him. But it doesn't. The game sort of counts on, well, you're playing Knights of the Republic 2. you recognize this guy's voice. You're probably curious about what happened to your character from the first game. We don't need like to force you to look in that. Like, so you have to dig in there and sort of like, you have to dig into these side characters and get them to reveal their backstories to you, because you don't have to really for any of them except for a bit of Kreia.
I mean, you're missing the game entirely if you don't.
Oh yeah,
but yeah, it is your choice, I guess. Ultimately, I mean, you could do this is one of those games where a speed run would just be like what the most pointless exercise. You know, like how fast can you get through this? Who cares?
Yeah, that's certainly true. I mean, it's I don't know for other games what the point of that is anyway.
Good point. I don't know either.
I find it oddly entertaining to watch some of them, but yeah, this one.
Twitch games where it's just like, you know, how fast can I get through a Mario level? That's interesting. But like, you know, an RPG where it's about talking to people. What are you doing?
Right.
What a waste of time. You know, you're wasting the least amount of time possible. Good job.
Yeah, but it's still several hours, I would imagine.
Yes.
So anyway, he helps you sneak down. Mandalore decides that he's going to come along with you for his own reasons. And he helps you sneak down to the planet's surface, where you have a brief meetup with I mean, you get involved in a little bit of intrigue around the brewing coup, and can kind of choose a side there of, are you going to end up helping the queen or the upstart general? You have a brief meeting with one of the Jedi Masters down there, but it gets busted up, and you have to flee again, and go to a different planet until the heat dies down on Onderon. So
sure.
Now we go to Nar Shaddaa, which to me highlighted this game. This is the best.
It's like it's half the game, man. This is humongous. Yeah. Uh-huh.
So what's the point of comparison for Nar Shaddaa? It's, you know,
it's sort of,
it's Gotham City, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, it's, you know, it's Crime City. It's a city of crime, right. I guess. You know, it's not quite Coruscant. You know, you don't get the sense it's, you know, a massive bustling, you know, media hub or whatever. It's, you know, it's sort of a backwater, but it's still, you know, it's still like very populous. It's just poor, and there's crime everywhere and gangsters everywhere. It's you know,
it's the moon of the home planet of the Hutts is what they establish. Yeah. So it's ruled by gangsters. It's Gangster Town, and when you get there, the sort of top gangster at the time is Goto, who is this mysterious sort of new crime boss that has upset everybody, all the other crime bosses in this sector, particularly the local Hutt boss, who's very angry at him. But he is the new boss in the sector. When you show up, you get a nice cutscene of him like gathering up all these different bounty hunters. I love this. This is a trope that I love. Is all right. All the bounty hunters show up here. You know, that's the Empire Strikes Back scene, obviously. Where they introduce Boba Fett is one. I have a probably disproportionate amount of affection for the Dolph Lundgren Masters of the Universe movie, just because they do this.
The scene is in there, yeah. Okay. Uh-huh.
Yeah, we got our Yeti and our Lizard Man and
here's the
Robot
new action
Guy.
Figures.
Yeah. So all the action figures are lined up here. You've got a pair of twins that are the Twi'leks, the dancing girls with the head tails that are evil twins that are hunting you. You got a big evil Wookiee, you know, sort of continuing the Darth Maul, Bao-Dur flipping around of, we finally get an evil Wookiee. You know, that so mad at the Boba Fett show for promising this and then not following through on it.
Well, that's what this is. If that moment when the evil black Wookiee shows up in the Boba Fett show and you're just like, oh, cool, this is going to be a great character. And then it's not at all. And you hate him by the end of the show. In this, it's the great character version of that. It's everything you want from evil Wookiee. Frankly, I want to do more. Yes. That's a reason to be an evil character, because I want that evil Wookiee on my team.
Exactly. So then you have a whole hive of this like insect type race that chases you around.
Yeah, they're great.
Oh no, the Zugs are we have the Zug family, and then the Gand are the littler guys.
Oh, okay.
With like the bug eyes. And you have the Zug family, and you have the HK-50s. I think that's the full cohort there. But you know,
this is just bounty hunters and criminals and gangsters and blasters and all. It's all the cool Star Wars stuff like that, and just localized in one place, an arena basically where they can all just go at each other.
Yeah, and they're pulling guns on each other and threatening each other because they don't get along because they're all bad men, you know?
It's like John Wick shit, or I don't know, Smoking Aces, whatever bunch of teams of assassins. Yeah, it's...
Smoking Aces, yeah. That's a good pull.
Yeah.
So you drop into this, and there's also, you get sort of embroiled in the trying to help, I guess if you're doing the evil version, trying to just heap additional pain onto the refugee sector, where there's just a ton of people here who are refugees from the wars that have been sort of blocked into a ghetto and are being ruthlessly exploited by all the crime bosses. You go back and forth here. You end up meeting up with another bounty hunter who wasn't at the meeting of the evildoers, because she's kind of the nice girl bounty hunter, and that's Mira, young lady bounty hunter, who's sort of the gentleman bounty hunter. She's got a rivalry with Hanhar, the evil Wookiee. They have a backstory where he hates her, and I mean, she doesn't like him, but so you face off with some crime bosses. There's intrigue and back and forth, and Mira kind of backstabs you, but not really.
A poison gas bar that humans can't go into. It's good shit.
Yeah, I love the Jek Tar, the cantina where alien races go into like huff toxic fumes so humans can't breathe in there, and you have to learn special force powers to control your breath to get through there, or wear the big scuba undersea deep sea diving suit, and you fight your way through there. You get Mira and Hanhar have a fight where, just based on your alignment here, you will get one or the other of them. If you're evil, you will control Hanhar. If you're good or neutral, you'll get Mira, and you'll fight the other one. And if you're Hanhar, you'll kill Mira. If you are Mira, you will seemingly kill Hanhar, but then later Kreia will show up and kind of revive him and give him sort of like, hey, you work for me now, and I'm going to give you some secret orders. God, that the intrigue of that is so much fun. I love Kreia sneaking around sort of behind your back, talking to people. It's
kind of like the Obi-Wan, going, I'll go turn off the tractor beam, except she's doing evil shit against you in some cases.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we're giving kind of short shrift here. It's a very long, involved, plot-heavy portion, but it's so much fun.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's as cool as it gets. It's great, and yeah, I will tell you, Mira, that's the one big miss for me.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't care about
she's going to
Mira.
be at the bottom of my character rankings. Yeah, I mean, Hanhar is a better character all around. That is
totally
the one thing pushing me towards doing an evil playthrough. Now, one thing we forgot to mention, by the way, is that somewhere in here, like around your first planet, you'll get a cutscene that introduces another playable character, which is Visas Mar, who is a blind Sith that is the apprentice for one of the other big Sith lords, Darth Nihilus, who is just a big hulking Grim Reaper looking guy. Or what's the name of that thing in Spirited Away? That
I
got
know
the
what
white
you're talking
face
about.
mask.
Yeah, I couldn't pull that name. I'm sorry, but yes, that's the vibe. That is a Sith Lord. Yeah,
yeah. He's just big tall guy, a dark rose with sort of like a Grim Reaper mask or a skeleton mask, kind of in his face.
It looks like a Japanese puppet. Yeah. He doesn't speak. He just sort of like an evil,
hisses.
like Charlie Brown's parents or something. Yeah, it's.
Yeah. I think this game is actually really, I love the way it chooses to, because so much of Star Wars stuff is aliens speaking in alien dialects. And so much of it is subtitled, but I think the points where it chooses not to give you subtitles and just give you vibes, like the subtitles for when you talk to T3 and 4 is it just says beat, deet, beat, beat, deet, deet, beat, deet. And you can choose different versions of that sometimes, but it's just for fun. But it doesn't tell you. And then your dialogue reactions to it show that you understood what he said, but you can kind of react to it in different ways. You get it from your reaction, not from what. he actually says. Yeah.
Some good jokes in this game. Even just like play style jokes where you're just like, that's a gameplay joke that the writing somehow made. A lot of things like that pop up.
Well, in Nar Shaddaa, one of the funniest bits is you come across a couple of, no account thugs trying to extort somebody, and you can step in and save the day. And one of the ways you can do that is by using the Jedi mind trick to convince them to go jump into a bottomless pit. And they just say something like, "Oh yeah, we'll go jump into that pit. That's a good idea. We'll get to the ground faster that way."
Yeah. Doesn't like one of your team like, "Hey, what the hell was that?" afterwards? At least that's what happened to me, I think.
Well, depending on who you have, like Atten will react like you just did a great thing. It's like, "Oh man, you guys Jedi are really nice guys, huh?" And then some people will be like, "Whoa, was that really necessary?"
Yeah. I think I had Bioware who called me to task for that.
But it's the type of thing when you get that option in a game, you're like, well, I got to do that.
Yeah, I found a lot of those in this, actually. I mean, I think that when we talk about good and evil, interesting. There's something weird about this game. Well, no, I'll hold on to that. Okay.
So anyway, well, the other thing I was saying about the dialect is that you don't get subtitles for when Darth Nihilus speaks. He just sort of hiss growls in this language of the ancient Sith or whatever it is. And Vsauce can understand him and respond to it, but we don't know what he says. Or Darth Sion can too, when they have a scene together. Yeah. But so he is sort of the backstory that comes out here is he is this creature of just hunger incarnate, and he has a way of just draining the life from everything. And so he killed most of the Jedi after the Civil War. I don't know if he even mentioned at the top of this that it's 5 years after the first game, and like all the Jedi except for you and Atris and a couple handful of people who are hiding in secret have been killed off. And he was responsible for killing off most of them because he can devour life through the Force. And he killed off all the Jedi who were meeting on her home planet and all of her home planet too. All of her people except for her.
Mira Luca, yes. Uh-huh.
Yes. But he impressed her into service as his apprentice, and he sends her out to go, because he has sensed your growing power through the Force, and he sends her out to go investigate you and kill you, basically. And then one of these times when you go back to your ship, she'll be ambush you there, and you fight her, and you, once you defeat her, she will sort of see the light and decide to that she wants to follow you now. And like, you're the first person I've encountered that might be able to actually defeat my evil overlord master. So I want to help you now. So now she's on your team, voiced by Kelly Hu, another, kind of known actor, another, I think, very good vocal performance.
Lady Deathstrike. Yeah. I mean, everyone's good in this. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So she's also a romance option for you if you're a male player. I guess we should talk about romance options at some point, but
man, I in this last playthrough, I just didn't romance anyone. I was kind of just like, I don't have time for any of that shit right now. Like, it's one of the first times I've ever played one of these games, and I've just been like, no, I really don't have time. It's probably just missing out on content, but I don't know. It didn't seem appropriate because I don't know, didn't want to get involved in that way emotionally with some of these characters.
Well, that's the thing is that three of the four romance options feel like they're really kind of messy and fucked up if you dig into them. Yes. With what like the power dynamics are and what everybody's messed up backstories are. But and then the other one option is the dweeb that I just have to imagine like 1% of players have ever chosen to actually do that out of curiosity.
I mean, I did Handmaiden when I first played it. I remembered that. And it's, it's okay. She's, you feel a little bad about it. Yeah.
You feel a little bad, but it's also like, you're kind of also, it's getting in a screw you to Atris at the same time.
Yes, like, absolutely.
Taking her follower from her entirely is kind of great. Yeah, that's not a bad. I think, and Visas, I think is just I don't know. I guess that's where my heart would go. If I had to be a more appealing character to like hang out with.
Kelly Hu, sure. Yeah, but yes, right. Yeah.
But even that's, she's pretty messed up, and it's like you should probably just leave her alone. And then on the female side, you have the disciple, who we'll get to shortly, and Atten, who, what we should get
Atten,
to. Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
He's by far the more interesting option. So we started to get Atten's backstory here on Nar Shaddaa, actually, because you run into somebody who's sort of like, hey, you're going around with that guy, that like, you mean Atten? And he says, well, that's not the name I know him by. And they sort of intimate that he's got this dark past, which you start questioning him about. And if you have proper influence with him by your earlier choices and options, he will eventually reveal what his backstory is, which is that he fought with under Revan and Malak in the first wars, and he was basically an interrogator / torturer for them, where his whole job was to like capture enemy Jedi and torture them to the point where they could be like converted into Sith. And he reveals this in a kind of a rather disturbing monologue about talking about how much he enjoyed it. And this is, this is your comedy sidekick buddy that's going into how he worked at Guantanamo.
Yeah. And yeah, how much, all the ways he's killed Jedi. I distinctly remember this. Being really surprised in 2022 replaying it, the extent to which they get into this with this guy. And it's like, oh yeah, here's what you do with it when you got to kill a Jedi. It's very matter of fact and very, very considered. Good stuff. Atten, excellent twist for Atten. Yeah.
Once you get through all that too, you then get the option of actually training him to be a Jedi himself, which you can do with more than half your characters. I mean, Visas comes as a Jedi. You can train the handmaiden if you get enough influence with her as well. You can train Bao-Dur and the disciple too, so that's 4 different characters. I guess you can't have a handmaiden and the disciple on the same playthrough, so you can train 3 in one playthrough. So anyway, that's a fun game mechanic too. The reason why I like that, especially in replays, is that it sort of allows you to do different Jedi builds. Like I liked doing having Atten be a Jedi who still used pistols,
of course,
which is like an option they built in, but you're never going to choose that for your main character.
No.
And then you can have somebody who uses a double-sided lightsaber and somebody who uses 2 regular ones. That's also what you want to do.
You can't get Mira, right? You cannot make Mira a Jedi.
Oh no, you can't.
You can? Okay, I just didn't because I didn't like her, I guess. All right.
Yeah, you can't. Yeah. You can't do a romance with her.
Okay.
You can flirt with her, but she'll shut you down.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
I mean, I think I tried when I first played through, just out of like, she seems like she might do the casual hookup with you that sometimes you get in a Bioware game, that like you can hook up with Morgan. Whoever, and not have her be your one true love.
Right.
Survive that. But no, she just goes, nah, not interested. She kind of, I don't shit where I eat type of answer.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Well,
honestly, maybe the most interesting thing she does, just because it's not what you expect from a video game in PC, at least in this era.
Sure.
To turn you down for no reason other than just saying not interested. And no, there's no gift or side quest you can do that will make me interested.
Yeah. Just anyhow, should have had Hanhar. Oh well. Oh well. Yeah.
He would have at least done hand stuff with me. So anyway, we're still in the plot of Nar Shaddaa now, because you have to.
Sure, yeah.
So.
All right, we're like 40 minutes in, so we should probably stop. No, we're double 40 minutes. We're double 40 minutes.
Exactly.
Okay.
There's so much plot in this game; it's crazy. But the second 2 planets are much shorter. So, all right.
Sure.
Eventually, the exile gets captured by Goto and taken up onto his super yacht that he flies around the system and is cloaked and has been terrorizing the other crime bosses. And so the other characters have to launch a rescue mission. And this is where a lot of the fun stuff comes in too, where you, as T3M4, infiltrate a warehouse full of droids to like steal some codes and whatever. And do some levels just as him. You have to fight some HK 50 units in there as well. And you eventually like disguise the Ebon Hawk as a freighter belonging to one of the huts that are being constantly hijacked by Goto. So then you fly up, Goto hijacks the Ebon Hawk, and you get to send your team in to sort of go and free the exile from inside the yacht. Once you do that, you then turn off the cloaking device of the ship, and then every like bounty hunter in the system that the huts have been trying to pay to find Goto and kill him start converging on the ship, and you sort of fight your way out of the ship through all of these, all of Goto's thugs, or Goto uses all droids, I guess, and all the bounty hunters coming, and all the bounty hunters coming in to kill him and you, and it's a big free for all, which is a lot of fun. I found. I guess we talk about Goto.
Honestly, Nar Shaddaa is its own game on its own. It's the one that it's probably, I don't know, 20 to 30 hours, depending on how you play it. Yeah.
Oh, no, it's not that much, is it? I don't know. My playthrough is so
25.
It's
long. It's big.
It's probably as long as all the other plans put together. That's what I'd say.
Yeah, and I'm also, having lengthy conversations with my team throughout that can take, 20 minutes long each. So, who knows what actual time that is, I guess. But I was there a while, tell you what. And kind of wanted to get it all in Nar Shaddaa. Did you find the Toydarian? Right. There's Toydarians there.
Well, he's on the landing pad,
yes,
right? When you come down, right?
Yeah, and it's voiced by the same guy who did Watto.
Yes, it is.
That's so great.
And you sort of squat on this landing pad, and there's a whole sequence where a gang shows up to be like, "Hey, why'd you let this ship park on our landing pad?" And he's like, "Oh, they threatened me. I don't know, man." And they like wait to ambush you on your ship when you when you come back and you fight your way through them. I think if you're evil, you can sort of like take over their slavery ring and demand that they give you a cut of their slavery profits.
I did a few things like that every now and then, just because. Yeah. Well, that's the good and evil thing. Like, gray morality is the way to play this game. Anyway, you go on.
So now we're finally done with Nar Shaddaa. When we leave Nar Shaddaa, we on our ship we find this floating droid, like the big black ball droid that interrogated Leia in A New Hope with like the floating syringe. That's sort of like the droids that Goto uses to project his image and talk to people because he never shows up in person. And he's like, he says the same line from Return of the Jedi. He says, "I present you with a gift, this droid." And he says, like, basically, this droid is a companion for you now. I'm going, like, you are a wrecking ball going through the galaxy. I'm all about trying to stabilize things. I know you think I'm a crime boss, but I'm really trying to help the Republic get back on its feet here because it's such a mess economically.
He's sort of a Varys figure from Game of Thrones. He's a guy, I care about the realm, really.
Yeah, that's exactly what he is. Except that Varys is kind of ultimately a good guy, and Goto's not really. But he is. Yep. But he styles himself as a patriot that loves the Republic, which is actually true. I guess we just reveal his backstory now. You have to uncover it slowly, but it turns out that he actually is just a droid that pretends to be a human hiding behind droids because they get more respect from other gangsters that way, I guess. But it turns out he is an artificial intelligence droid that was supposed to be sent to be helping with the restoration project on Telos to get that planet back going. And Bayodur thought it was stolen by the evil, Weyland-Yutani Corporation that he was feuding with there. But it turns out it actually just sort of became self-aware and ran off to it decided its primary directive was to help the Republic or save the Republic by stabilizing Telos. And then it ultimately decided that it couldn't do that there. It had to go elsewhere and become a crime boss to do that, which is, all interesting stuff. Stuff we haven't seen in other Star Wars for sure.
This is like a secondary playable character in a cast of, I don't know, 9 or 10 of those. And it is incredible. It is one of the best characters. I love Goto. And you don't really get the full breadth of how interesting he is unless you play his plot out all the way through. I didn't figure out that he was actually a droid the first time I played this. 20 years ago. I only found that out this time. And he's great. It's such an interesting way of approaching this. I mean, it's kind of in a sense, it's like the Ultron thing as well. It's just like, my prime directive is galactic stability. And so the way towards that is to pose as a human gang leader and play these different factions off against one another, including the Sith and the Jedi. He's kind of like, I don't care which one is in charge, Jedi, Sith, either of them being in charge is more stability than nobody being in charge.
So he'll help you either way, and just wants but he's sort of a threat to you either way. He just wants somebody to win decisively, so that and he's kind of siding with the Sith at this point. He's like, the Jedi don't seem like they can pull this one out. So
they don't have their shit
just
together.
Get it over with.
Yeah. Just it'll be a few years of fascism. It'll be fine. We'll figure it out later. It's fine.
So now we're finally done with Nar Shaddaa.
Yeah, we didn't even mention Zez Kyle, the sort of the bemulleted Jedi Master with the big handlebar mustache there.
Yeah, we don't really have time to get into the Jedi Masters.
No, I guess not. But they have their great own philosophies too. Yes. Okay.
Yeah, they all have unique conversations with them. At the end of any of these planets, you can sort of like have a talk with them, or just fight them and kill them if you're an evil guy.
Right. Zez Kyle's kind of the Michael Madsen in Kill Bill of them, where he's just like, yeah, well, we did you wrong and we all deserve to die, but well, then so do you.
Yeah, that is kind of his attitude.
Yeah.
Now, so now I guess we go back to finish up Onderon at this point, because the Civil War has broken out in earnest. Can help whichever side you had kind of chosen to win that war, and have your sort of talk with Master Kavar, the other Jedi Master there. You also get a nice, another cutscene of Kreia creeping around and recruiting another one of the not the general that you're fighting against, but his underling. Sort of like sends him off, kind of tricks him into thinking something else happened. Look, we don't have time to get into this point. We're going so long, but she's doing more of her, I guess, Julia Louis-Dreyfus and Marvel Phase 4 thing of sort of recruiting all the minor villains behind the scenes.
It's at that level, really. It's that good. Yeah.
So now we move on to Dantooine, where
hang on. I know we're running long. I need to talk about this in Onderon. It's one of the game that blew me away. The final decision you get to make, which is like the bad guy, you defeat him, and then he's like, well, I surrender, and you'll just have to take me prisoner, and we all know how that'll turn out, and you're kind of given the choice, like, well, okay, we'll take him into jail and he'll eventually figure a way out, or we'll just kill him right here. And it is coded in the game that the light side choice is to take him to jail and the dark side choice is to kill him. And that's wrong. That is incorrect. That is not a binary choice. It is not an obvious choice. And the game understands that. It's so cool. Like, you are doing the wrong thing that hurts more people by doing the light side choice there.
Yeah, and the sort of young idealistic queen will go along with murdering him. If you much like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to execute you on the spot.
You should do that.
I haven't played this version in a while, but as I recall correctly, I think the general kind of respects that decision from her. Like, oh, maybe you can lead this planet after all, or something.
Yes. But it is a case where I think doing the light side thing is bad. That it results in the worst decision. And you are faced to confront, like, if you want the points for being light side, you have to do the thing that hurts more people, which I think is essential to what this game is about. It is about the fraudulence of these binary choices, which makes it kind of unique in the Bioware
entirely
thing.
I mean, I guess you could try and make that argument that, like, I mean, if you want to give Mass Effect a ton of credit, I think what it really comes down to is that there's not a big difference between doing the Paragon or Renegade pathway there. But I suppose you could try and slant that as, oh, it's showing the fraudulence of those binary choices too, but not the way this is.
No, this is explicitly. This is what the game's about. This is Kreia's whole point. This is like, well, one of her. Oh, God.
Yeah, Kreia's lecturing you about these things throughout the game, and that she's sort of an objectivist, and saying that there is, you are doing kindness for these people, but you're just weakening them by giving them charity. And sometimes the harder path will strengthen them. That I'm trying. I think there's one line about that she gives you about how people and cultures are defined by conflict, and they find themselves wanting, and that's her whole thing.
There's some incredible little lines in this. Yeah. Anyway. Okay.
Yeah.
That's what's so cool. That's what's so cool about Onderon. Anyway. Yeah.
Yeah. So now we're on to Dantooine. It used to be like a headquarters for the Jedi. It's where they used to have their sort of academy where you were trained to be a Jedi in the first game, but now it's been bombed out as part of the plot of that game. But you also go into the ruins of the old Jedi facility there. And there you find, if you are playing a female character, I think he's there actually either way, but he only joins you if you're a female. You find the disciple, who is a historian who is looking for Jedi artifacts. Turns out he has kind of a lot going on when you get into his backstory, that he is sort of a covert operative for the Republic, although it doesn't take long to suss that out whatsoever. And he's sort of a historian, like archaeologist, and also a former like youngling Jedi pupil that never got properly trained. That when he was a child, was brought there. He says he met your character as a child and was going to be trained by you before you went off, or was hoping to be before you went off to fight the war. And then he never properly joined the Jedi. So he comes along with you. He's the dweeb character, though. He's very much the goody two shoes. And honestly, I think he's the least interesting. I think even below Mira in my eyes.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I've never played a female KOTOR 2 protagonist, so I have never really reckoned with the disciple fully, but I don't feel I'm missing anything in that regard, that's for sure.
Yeah, I've played female characters. I don't think I've ever fully reckoned with disciple, because I just, as into this game as I am, I don't know if I was ever into it enough to get to the very bottom of his dialogue trees.
I was with a lot of them. But
as we're laying out here, you don't get a lot of these characters until they're scattered across these planets. So some of them are going to get short shrift in any playthrough, because you're not going to get them until you're like over halfway through the game, and you're not going to have that much time to take them to new places and trigger, interactions with them. So I'm going to prioritize other characters before I collect the disciple. Anyhow, you meet up with the Jedi Master there, who's voiced by Ed Asner, who's just sort of the old cranky pants.
Master Vrook. Wow. I mean, giving Atris a real run for biggest asshole Jedi. Yeah.
Yeah, but he's just as big of an asshole and thinks everything you're doing is wrong, but at least he's out trying to do some stuff. So I give him the edge on Atris for that.
He's old, and he refuses to understand any new perspectives, and it's he sucks.
Yeah.
He's maybe not as much as Atris, but he sucks.
But that's really all the story of Dantooine. So now we're off to Korriban.
You can do a whole movie about what happens there.
On Korriban, now that this is also a sort of ruined world. It used to be the Sith headquarters, but they kind of like fell into infighting after the end of the first game, and the whole place is ruined now. As you sneak in there, you go into the place, and Darth Sion is waiting for you there. The Jedi Master you're looking for, turns out, is actually dead already, so you don't really get anything there. And you have a fight with Darth Sion, but you can't kill him there. There's some mumbo jumbo about he can just regenerate himself from dark side energies inside of this temple, whatever. But it's just to give you a fight, a skirmish with the villain that you can't win. And at this point in the story, there's
some cool ghost visions too.
You can go through the caves sort of on the side of this, where you get a lot. It's like a much more elaborate version of Luke going into the ground in Dagobah and fighting Darth Vader. It turns out to be himself. You see a lot of like visions of bits and pieces of the Mandalorian Wars that you were in, and Malik and Revan and their different guises, and a whole sort of, I don't know, it's a morality play where hallucinations of your whole entire party are attacking Kreia, and you have to kind of decide whose side you're to take. I don't know. I'm brushing through this all. It's actually pretty well rendered for a 2004 video game.
It's exceptional. It's really good. All of it's great. Yes.
I mean, it's especially difficult, like for a 2004 video game that's also trying to do this sort of conceptual, psychological, like dream sequence, digging into the psychology of a character that the game can't really define for you. It has to let you do that, decide who that character is, but also do this sort of thing. It's quite a high bar they're setting for themselves there, and it works pretty well.
Yeah. Repeatedly over and over, they keep pulling shit like that out. It's great stuff. But yeah, we gotta push on here.
Yeah, we're finally to the end game, where now you're supposed to go meet with all the assembled Jedi. What's left of the Jedi are going to meet you back on Dantooine in the ruined Jedi Temple, and you get there, and either you've killed them all already, and there's nobody there, and just Kreia comes up and just does some speech defying and gets the things going, or the Jedi Masters are there, and they reveal at this point that they never actually stripped you of your Force powers, that you had done that to yourself to avoid these the horror of what happened at Malachor 5 and how that was going to destroy your mind as a Jedi who was connected to all living things. And they have decided that basically they didn't do it before, but they need to do it now. Or maybe they need to kill you. They're like, yeah, sorry, we gotta get rid of you. Is the vibe? You're too dangerous. And Kreia comes in, if they're still there, and sort of knocks you out and kills them for you. But now
destroys them. I love this. She kills them in such a way that they're no afterlife for them. They can't be ghosts. They're just obliviated, or it's great. So cool.
Yeah. And the other thing that I guess we haven't even talked about, but is throughout all of this game, you're hearing a lot about wounds in the Force, and that is
a lot of wounds in the Force. Yeah.
That you are carrying a wound with the Force in the Force along with you because of what happened to you at Malachor 5, and Darth Nihilus is another wound in the Force, and Malachor 5 has one, and these other places, that presumably Terrace, the planet that got destroyed in the first game, has its own, and that. All these giant galactic wars we're talking about have been leaving these pock marks in the Force everywhere, and a couple of them are moving around along with your character and the big bad guy Darth Nihilus. Now, so at this point, Kreia has sort of revealed herself as the final Lord of the Sith. That there's 3 of them, her and Sion and Nihilus. And she is now revealed herself as Darth Treya, the Lord of Betrayal. And so she's now your main villain. And you chase her back to Telos, where Darth Nihilus is bringing his whole fleet to go destroy all of Telos, because she has led him to believe that the Jedi are all there, and he can have a nice big meal because he feeds on Force users.
Right.
And now we get into big sort of siege of the space station sequence. Meanwhile, you go down to the planet surface, you confront Atris, you fight the handmaidens, you fight her, you can kill her or not kill her. She reveals that she has sort of been corrupted over time and has kind of fallen to the dark side herself. After
a fashion, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's some crap about how she's been collecting Sith artifacts to study them, and these things corrupted her over time because she was spending all her time with them and not with actual people or whatever. Honestly, it's sort of mumbo jumbo you don't need. I like the idea that she was just corrupted just by sourness and sanctimoniousness, and holding herself so far above all of humanity that she just came to hate everybody, and that's pretty much all it takes. Meanwhile, during all of this, HK-47 sneaks off to the military base that you went and visited earlier in the game, because he has determined that is where the HK-50s, there's a hidden factory underneath it where the HK-50 units are being manufactured. And this part is only in the restored content, but I think it's kind of essential. Well, wait, no, there must be... maybe I don't. Now I'm having a hard time remembering what is what. But
yeah, me too. I mean,
there's a whole
played
level
it
down
last
there.
year, that's for sure. Yeah,
There's a whole level down there that is certainly added content. But the gist of it is he sort of hijacks the HK50s and gets them to follow him, which is a lot of fun. And meanwhile, you're fighting off all the Sith that are attacking. You go on to Darth Nihilus's ship and plant bombs around it to destroy it, and bring Visas with you to have a final confrontation with Darth Nihilus, where you defeat him. I guess if you're dark side, you could just sacrifice her to gain some sort of advantage in that fight, but it just seems so unnecessary because you can beat him anyway. That
right, yeah.
Even as dark side, I would not bother with that. But that's what a lot of the dark side playthrough feels like, is just being an asshole for an asshole's sake.
Right.
So then after that, you've almost saved the galaxy, and it feels like it kind of could be game over, except Kreia is still out there, and she has retreated to Malachor 5. So you chase her down there, and now you have the final confrontations on Malachor. You go into the Sith stronghold there. Mm-hmm. If you have Mira in your party, she has a final confrontation with Hanhar, who Kreia has enlisted to hunt her, to I guess keep her from helping you or whatever. And in the original game, you fight Darth Sion there and can finally kill him once and for all. Though because he can kind of regenerate endlessly, you have to kind of convince him to let go of his clinging to life.
Dialogue boss fights. Yep. The best.
Yeah. That's a combo where you actually, it's sword fights, dialogue, sword fights, dialogue, sword fights, dialogue in stages. But in the restored content mod, much better. It's Atten that has the fight with Darth Sion. And this is one of those rare RPG fights that you can lose. And it is not just go back to your last save point thing. If you win, great. You beat the bad guy and Atten is still around at the end. If you lose, then Sion tortures and dismembers Atten, and you come across him later and he dies in your arms.
I didn't know that was a possibility. That's pretty cool. Okay.
Yeah, it's some dark stuff for a video game. For a Star Wars game too.
Yeah. Cool.
It's kind of great. And then you, of course, finally have your face off with Kreia, wherein she finally reveals the thing about Kreia is, I guess, her master plan. And the thing, especially in the original released version of the game, you really can go play the whole game and beat it and never quite uncover what she's after. Never, right. I don't think you have to have her really enunciate what her end goals are. But again, if you're not having the conversations in this game, you're missing out on all of it, because her master plan is fantastic. It's incredible stuff that she is trying to. I mean, we're not trying to get into all the ins and outs, but trying to use the wounds in the Force to create echoes in a way that will ultimately destroy the Force itself. That's her end goal. She hates
she's opposed to the Force. She's trying to destroy the Force because she sees it as a crutch, as a weakness and something that that Jedi and Sith alike rely on instead of themselves.
And a puppet master that sort of
yes,
she's like, we don't have free will, really.
It's the George Lucas thing about the wills, how they basically the Force is a living entity that puppeteers and manipulates all the anyone who uses it, to its own ends.
This is why she's been so obsessed with your character the entire time, because you cut yourself off from the Force, and because you're disconnected from it, you are actually moving through the galaxy with free will in a way that other people are not in her eyes. And she is obsessed with that and wants to recreate that, even if she has to kill you to try and spread it to others, is what it comes down to.
It's the best writing in Star Wars, man. Right there. That's the idea, Yeah. It's next level kind of philosophical shit about what the nature of this thing is. It's so good. It's so cool. It needs to be rendered in some format that people will see. That's
we've had 12 movies and we've not had this villain or this plan. I mean, maybe not, it doesn't have to be Kreia exactly, I guess, but this hasn't been anybody's master plan in 12 movies and all these streaming shows. It's wild to me.
Yeah. I mean, this is the great idea. I mean, there's a lot of great ideas in this, but that's the one that I'm just like, Well, that's so important. That's such a significant idea for this world, for Star Wars. That's how you take this to the next level. This is how this becomes, something as rich as I don't know, the Lord of the Rings, as big as one of these ever gets. I mean, that's what this feels like. This feels like you're reading an incredible fantasy novel or series of novels, I guess. That really, really pays off in the end. Any of those, that whatever one you like best, just plug that in, but with Star Wars, and that's the feel of these games together.
And in a way it feels like the Game of Thrones to like original flavor Star Wars Lord of the Rings, where it is I mean, it's not in completely different continuity like that is, it's a different world, but it's inspired by it. This is within the same universe, but it feels like taking this stuff that was aimed at 10-year-olds initially and aging it up and saying like, okay, but what if we took all the implications of this world seriously and populate it with adults? Like I said, everybody's scarred by wars from decades ago in this game. At that point, there's not a lot of kids in this game. Like Mira's the young one, I guess, but there's no mission vow that is a teenager. The main character has got to be 40 years old to make the backstory work.
This is where this becomes actually adult, not just some the dark version of, like the Zack Snyder version of dark. This is the actual adult version of Star Wars, where it's about things that you don't understand until you're an adult. And it's mostly playing for them. And I don't know, it probably is leaving kids aside a little in telling this story, but that's fine. This is proof that it doesn't have to just be children's property, that this has something to offer all ages. This is the best of Star Wars. Simple as that.
And it's not the Batman. Like you could still have younger kids play this game or watch an adaptation of it, and they wouldn't be left out entirely.
Yeah, we're not scalping people with lightsabers. That's not what being adult is here. That's not what it is. It's about how do you live with yourself after something happened? Shit like that. Real things that kind of don't resonate until you had some miles behind you. Look, we've been talking about this. This is one of our longest episodes. We could continue on, I'm sure, several hours. In fact, I was kind of looking to, see what people have said about Knights of the Old Republic 2 going into this. And there are like 7-hour video essays on YouTube. There's no end of analysis that you can do for this. And we're not done. We're not done. This episode, I think, has to end because it's gotten long. But we're coming back. We're going to talk about Knights again soon, right away. Probably come right after this episode. We're going to talk about the adapting process of it, how you would bring this idea and this story to more people.
Well, I got ideas on that.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Which we'll get into next time.
Yeah, and we'll talk more about Kreia because she's the best and all these things. So, more Knights of the Old Republic 2 coming. It's too big a conversation for one episode. It's simply too large. All right. Thank you for listening this far, though. All right. Thank you, Al.
Thanks, Ben.